HayprO on Antiga Shipyard. Peace. See, it's like an old Fnatic thing. I know Kwai Rice loves to do that. I do that. TT1 does it. JF does it.
JF, wow!
Jean
I haven't heard about him in so long. TSL.
I actually talked to him recently.
TSL 1
yeah, TSL 1. I talked to him recently in Diablo 3.
Oh, you did. Of all places, it's like
we ran Act 3 together. No, Act 4 together.
Wow.
Easy.
Hey, you know, speaking of throwback, TT1 did this incredible thread giving so much history to StarCraft. If you guys haven't, TT1 did a huge blog stating, like, did you know in the past, you know, this happened, this player happened, this player happened. Who was this guy? Who was Idra back in, like, 2006, 2007? Really cool blog. Check it out, especially between games, as it's a very good, rich StarCraft history. But let's introduce our players before we continue to talk any further. We see here in the bottom right, in the red color, we have HayprO from Team Liquid, the Zerg player that has always been rumored to be fantastic in practice, but just hasn't been able to display it. Well, if there's a time for HayprO to start turning around, it's now. It's week 7 in NASL Season 3.
Top left-hand corner, we have MTW TT1, who just took out HayprO's teammate, arguably substantially better than HayprO. A lot of people would say that. There's, of course, Zenio with an amazing run. I think, you know, TT1 has just been looking absolutely phenomenal. Now, it does look like TT1 will block out this natural. Unfortunately for him, he doesn't know that the third is going up this time. But all that does is tells TT1 that he is going up against 3-base economy. Normally, I shouldn't say that because it's not for sure, but 99, nope, that's too high. 90%, 95%, maybe even 97% of the time, you will be going up against a 3-base after this. 2-base rushes don't really work, I think, against Protoss, so...
the only exception is if they play, for some reason, really greedy and you can get speedlings. And we've seen players like Crazy Move and try to do stuff like that. And it's just very situational. You're right. 2-base normally doesn't really work, especially against a confident Protoss. And we see TT1 immediately blocking the natural. Now HayprO completely circumvented that by getting the third hatchery. Or sorry, the third base hatchery immediately. Look at that, TT1 being facetious, dropping another gateway.
He's punishing his opponent for only having 2 Zerglings out in the field.
Yeah.
You don't do that. You get 4 Zerglings, so you can make sure this happens. Now, look at all these drones. We're going to count on the timer. They started around 4:15 where they came off here. And I'm going to do the math for you guys so that you guys know how much mining was lost with these drones.
Until then, we see TT1 just getting everything else pretty normally as his Nexus is up, uninhibited. Now, Antiga Shipyards, a map where it's a little bit trickier to establish a 3rd base as Protoss if you let Zerg get 3-base economy. If they end up going for 3 hatchery, 4 gas, and roaches, it can get a little bit messy, but we've seen Protoss stabilize a lot more with Sentry Immortal. And TT1 has been playing a lot more rock solid with that Sentry Immortal Stalker style. That's how he beat Zenio on this map specifically. So he's very comfortable playing that, delaying Colossus significantly. So I'm interested to see how TT1 follows up. I mean, he didn't do the standard you know, opening where he goes for Nexus first, because you can't necessarily on Antiga Shipyards, but TT1's been playing some solid macro games.
I think I like that style the best because you actually imply some sort of huge timing push, and off of that you can actually just back up, and your Immortals actually have a lot of relevance going into that mid game, assuming you force your opponent to get those roaches out, even if they get infestors, which are normally seen as the counter. Well, I shouldn't say the counter, but something to deal with them a little bit more effectively than mass roaches. You know, just the fact that their opponents have, or the Zerg has so much supply wrapped up in Zerglings and Roaches, it really helps out with that end game, and TT1 can obviously just go into his late game from there, whether it be Colossus, 3-base, etc. Just to let you guys know, it was approximately 80 minerals that he lost from all of those drones, so obviously it's a lot more efficient to go in and just make that extra pair of Zerglings and be able to clear that out. So it's unfortunate for HayprO. He did lose out. I told you guys I would come back to it.
Well, Andre, you are a man of your word, and well, that's hard to come by nowadays. But we do. It's true, man. But we see TT1 is getting everything else pretty normal. Gate Robo and then more gates is a pretty tall order. Usually, you get just enough to really make sure you're safe. 4 Gate Robo. Sometimes you see them get hallucination as well, but depends on if you want to get the Mortal immediately. Or you can get an Observer out and just play a little bit riskier. But I think HayprO is, I mean, he's really known to play macro style. You can see HayprO has been doing nothing but drone to this point. And, I mean, HayprO is just pretty comfortable doing everything pretty standard. He's getting his Roach Warren pretty delayed, though, as well as the Evo Chamber. Normally you get around middle of 6 minutes, going to 7 minutes, but he's going around the 8-minute mark. So he's playing a lot greedier here.
Yes, that will mean that no upgrades will be in time for, you know, that 12 or that pre-12 minute push. Normally, Protoss needs to have some sort of pre-12 minute push to stop something like a really fast Mutas, because even though Mutas have kind of died, that switch is actually still very powerful. It delays the third baser quite a bit, and it forces the Protoss to just chill out and wait until they have something of more substance, whether that be Blink Stalkers, High Templars, cannons around their base. It just makes them play a lot more defensive. That's not a position they want to be at.
And the position that TT1 wants is these pylons by the third base. You can see that immediately the Zealots are trying to get into the warp in and immediately pressure with +1. HayprO doesn't have roaches out just yet. Some will pop, so some pretty clutch timings, but nonetheless, I think TT1 has been pressuring pretty decently, making sure to show restraint with the Zealots. Now back at home, he's getting his robotics bay. TT1 knows everything of HayprO's doing. He sees the gas, he sees the roaches, and he sees the 4th hatchery. And with that, TT1 knows he can just fall back. No attempt at a fast third, which is great. A lot of Protosses try to pressure and take their third, which is just way, way too greedy nowadays, and Zerg is able to run them over. TT1 just going to macro up and get his tech up.
Kind of interesting play there. The opportunity cost there was a couple of sentries. Obviously, sentries give you the amount of time, or excuse me, give you the amount of force fields, especially when you get them super early. So TT1 does lose out there, and because of that, he is relegated to this 2-base play. Normally, when you get super fast sentries out, you can go something like a really fast third base, because you don't have to worry about, you know, your opponent really pushing forward and being so strong. You have that sentry energy to actually force field out multiple times. So TT1 is going to take the loss right there in economy for quite a long time. You can see 68 to 53 harvesters, and he only has 7 more harvesters before he's fully maxed out. But it looks like he is doing some sort of 2-base Colossus play off of only 4 gateways, so it is more economic driven rather than some sort of 2-base pressure.
But yeah, but I just love the fact that he's not trying to take it incredibly early. You know, some people take it at the 9-minute mark. TT1 just making sure he has Colossus out for insurance. Now we see the roaches still sitting back from HayprO, just sending his Zergling to control. HayprO's vision isn't the best. In fact, his Zergling doesn't see this pylon. Oh my goodness, if this Zergling would quit taking a smoke break and inhaling the fumes, if you will, he would actually see that pylon. TT1 has that for reinforcements, and TT1 is just going to push it back for now. But at the same time, we see drops being researched for HayprO. Not the most common research we see mid-game. This is a really interesting tech choice.
I like this. And TT1 goes over the base, and I think he's feeling so comfortable too, because Zerglings and Hydras, Zerglings and Roaches are only are out in plentiful numbers, and he's saying, wow, that's a lot of supply that's committed towards this. I am looking really good with this Colossus timing. Even though I'm only on 4 gateways, the sheer composition is going to be able to force some sort of pretty big reaction, and this reaction will give me the advantage going into that mid-game stage and evening up the supplies and the economy. You want to be super cost efficient if you are taking some sort of economic loss. And obviously TT1 has in this beginning stage with the third base being so far behind, and he's looking really good. Don't forget, he has this pylon over here to help him out.
I know, the Zerglings finally discovered it, but TT1 still going to be able to secure it. Just wants to get up his 3-base economy, playing very safe macro style, never really truly attacking. And I wouldn't be surprised if TT1 showed his army and just backed off again, just threatening HayprO. For now, HayprO finishing up Vengeful Sack's going to get +2 on his carapace and still making Roach Ling. Now, this is an interesting fusion of styles with getting Roach Ling, but getting drops, but also getting +1 attacks, preparing perhaps a...
Frodan, I think he forgot a Baneling Nest.
Did he?
Oh my god, this composition is so deadly against what HayprO is doing. I mean, HayprO needs that Baneling Nest to drop on top of all the units. I think he just forgot it. Normally you will go Baneling Nest so you can drop all over the sentries and make it so that the Colossus are slightly weaker, they can be flanked, but this is going to be so difficult. TT1 in a fantastic position. If he chooses to commit here, he might not have the information to know that he can commit here, so that's a a big problem for him.
Yeah, for now, TT1 just has that one observer working overtime, really, trying to see if he can get all information, just keeping it really within a restricted order. HayprO sending all of his units straight up the ramp to their death, and just like that, a lot of supply drop. Now, the silver lining is that HayprO now has a little bit more supply room if he wants to get Corruptors out to deal with the Colossus, but I don't see an actual way he can deal with the AoE from TT1, as these units are straight up engaging, has to be really cautious, and TT1 is getting lots of traction as HayprO is allowing him further and further into his base.
It looks like he doesn't have enough units over here. That's because there's a big counterattack going home at the third base. It looks like he's trying to kill this third. The Roaches will get in here, but I think TT1 will be able to consolidate at his natural as the Colossus just move forward. HayprO has no response to this, and it looks like his third base is naturals all under very heavy fire. I don't know how he's going to be able to hold this.
With Sentries and Immortal back at the natural, there shouldn't be any reason that TT1 dies there unless he kind of slips up there. HayprO realizes it. GG. TT1 takes game number 1 on Antiga Shipyards after very, very standard, common. How can I decide? That's just like how you play PvZ by textbook play.
Yeah, it was a little bit interesting. You upgrade the Ventral Sacs and, of course, the Overlord speed, and he's not actually using. I think Banelings would have been much stronger in that position. Of course, Roach taking Baneling, that is very standard to go, and then you just mass off of a ton of units after that and try to get good surrounds. That's normally how you do it, but it didn't happen that game.
I thought it was, originally when I saw there were no Banelings, I thought it was a fusion because he had a Spire up, so I wasn't sure if he was going to do Roachling with like a Muta Switch something or get Corruptors out and drop. It was a very interesting, I wasn't sure what his HayprO, I would have liked to see HayprO maybe even talk, maybe if he wins the series we can talk to him, his potential interview, develop his idea, but until then maybe even ask HayprO on his Twitter and whatnot. But until then, guys, let's take a break. But before that, we want to thank our sponsors, GameMinder, for providing a lot of support for NASL Season 3. It is a smartphone application about upcoming broadcasting games. Don't go anywhere. More action from the NASL Division number 1 is coming up right after this commercial.